My name is Moises. I attend Brooklyn Center High School.
Yep.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Okay, so we just wanted to have a conversation with you talking about the history of Rondo and like where you see it going in the future. So like if you don't mind, we just wanted to ask you, so where are you from and what does that mean to you?
Well, I grew up in the Rondo community on Laurel and Oxford. My parents bought that house before I was even born. So I spent, all of my childhood there. And actually my mom sold that house I think in 2015 and moved in with me in Brooklyn Center. So my family was there for over 30 years. It's interesting because Rondo's gone through a lot of changes. I know about the history of I-94. I wasn't around, obviously, when that happened, but I've definitely seen a lot of changes just while I was growing up there. Selby was definitely kind of a hot spot when I was in high school. I don't know that it necessarily is right now. I haven't been there in that area to know that, but it was kind of the block, but it also was like a space where I would see a lot of my friends from school. And some of them were friends, some of them were acquaintances, but it still felt like a very vibrant neighborhood, even when there was difficulties. And the thing that I always talk about Rondo, or at least about the area that I grew up in on Laurel, is that it was sort of like at the interpass of like wealth or the haves and the have-nots, because the governor's mansion's right there on Summit. But then I also see so much struggle, so much hardship and inequality and inequity along Selby, along Marshall, and definitely on the other side of 94 and around Eaglehart and Carroll and all those streets as well. But it's still a very connected community. There's lots of places where you can go and you can feel accepted. One of my favorite places to visit is the Golden Time. And I wasn't there when I was young, but I definitely have went back and frequented it in its former location as well as the location it is in now. And so I'd like to see it revitalized. I've seen some revitalization, but there's definitely like apartment buildings that I knew had friends that stayed in that are now like condos, like on Dayton and Marshall. So I know that there's also been some gentrification that's happened over the years as well. And it's interesting to understand or to think about and try to understand the connections between Rondo and the Frogtown area, which both are like very ethnically diverse. And I've always felt like, how is it that Frogtown has been so able to thrive and have all of these, Hmong-owned businesses, and yet it's been more of a struggle to get back the Black businesses in Rondo that were there before I was born, and that it seems like it's been a much slower process to try to support that coming back and being more of a vibrant part of the city. But there's still Rondo days. There used to be Selby days when I was younger as well, but I don't think that that's happened for many, many years.
Yeah, and like speaking of the revitalization of Rondo that you're talking about, what does that look like to you?
Well, I mean, being that I'm a mayor in Brooklyn Center now, I guess right away I would think about how do you support small businesses and entrepreneurs, Black small businesses and entrepreneurs specifically, to have a foothold in that community. And also, I know there's been some conversations around, the land bridge over 94. There's even some conversations around like turning 94 into something that isn't an interstate highway. I think at this point in time, that might be a little bit unrealistic to try to like turn an interstate into something other than an interstate, especially if you think about the importance of having access to businesses, which is part of how you revitalize an area so that people can come and spend their money there and then the money will be in the community. But I definitely think it's around home ownership, getting people that have had roots there and access to being able to buy homes. A lot of the reason why I'm in Brooklyn Center is because I couldn't afford to buy a home in my home area in Rondo. I was able to afford a place in Brooklyn Center that I couldn't have afforded in St. Paul in the Rondo neighborhood.
Wow.
So would you say that your experiences in Rondo has shaped who you are today, and especially as a role in being a mayor?
Definitely. I mean, I think, probably more than my neighborhood, my family but definitely my neighborhood as well. St. Paul Central, so much of my connections, like professional network, is still connected to St. Paul Central, which is in the Rondo neighborhood. My mom went there, my older sisters went there. When I got my job at the Minneapolis Health Department, my boss, my supervisor still were Central grads. And even now as mayor in Brooklyn Center, I went to Central with Mayor Melvin Carter, you know, so he was there in 1997. He graduated, I graduated in 1999. We were in journalism together. So there's definitely ties that bind me to Rondo. And whenever I go back to St. Paul or that side of the river, I try to spend a little bit of time just kind of like checking up on the old hood, driving past my old house, you know, maybe pop in at the Golden Time and grab something small to eat, say hi to folks. I will be honest that, you know, I think partially being a young mother, getting pregnant at 15 prevented me from, you know, having as deeper roots. Like I remember there was an organization called Young Life. I don't know if it's still around, but they had a space on Selby Avenue. And a lot of my classmates would go to there after school. And they also had like a summer camp, which I managed to go to one time. But a lot of my friends spent a lot of time there. And I can actually even remember, you know, my older sisters, I have two older sisters, spending a lot of time at Jimmy Lee, Oxford Pool. We would go there for birthday parties. They would go and hang out at Jimmy Lee. I didn't really do that when I was a teenager, but, you know, I can remember my sisters doing it. And I definitely think that it's been a resource for many young people for a long, long time. And I know more recently there's been some issues that have popped up around that space. But I also think it's very, very important space for young people that should be protected and continued and not taken away.
Yeah, I love how you were telling us about all those different things that brought people joy, like going to those parties and those shops and those vibrant streets, you know, because a lot of the time we hear about the I-94 highway and how it really destroyed so many parts of Rondo, but then it's we often leave out of the conversation all the joy and all that, and like all the Black joy that was a part and is still a part of that neighborhood. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I also think about this group, actually the person who sort of led this group's name is Levi Martin, and he still does like videos and stuff online, and I believe is still involved in dance. But there was this dance group called Immortal that he sort of headed, and I had several friends that went to Central with me that were part of this dance group. And I can even remember them performing on the stage at Central for like an assembly, and us being like so like excited because they did Thriller and like had all the moves. And a different one was Jodeci. You guys probably don't know who that is, but that's an old R&B band. So I just have some really, really positive memories of growing up there, and the art, the culture. You know, there was drama here and there, but overall, I feel like, you know, it definitely shaped me. And even just being sort of like in the space between the haves and the have-nots, I don't think that I ever was really, you know, middle income. I was more low income, but when my parents bought the house on Laurel Avenue, they bought it for like $35,000. But when my mom was ready to move, you know, it would have sold for like $350,000. And that just speaks to the importance of creating generational wealth through home ownership. Yeah. You know, it just can make a huge difference just in a matter of like 20 or 30 years.
Definitely. And so like growing up in this neighborhood, like if in any way, how would you say before highway affected you and your life growing up in Rondo?
Well, I think that in some ways it connected me to other communities. So the east side of St. Paul, the west side of St. Paul. I got my license the day after I turned 16, and I was already a mother. So I definitely got around. I went to prom at Roosevelt. You know, I had some friends that went to South High School. I got involved in like the hip hop community. So in some ways it provided a lot of access. It wasn't hard for me to get on 94 and go visit friends in different parts of town, whether that was East St. Paul, West St. Paul, or Minneapolis. But I also think, being that I was on, the south side of 94, I didn't feel like the west side of 94 I knew as well. I also felt like that side, occasionally I felt less safe over there than I did sort of like on the side of 94 that I grew up on. I had more friends that were like, on Laurel, Hague, Dayton, Marshall than I did on the other side of 94 where there's like Central and those other streets. I also think that, I heard stories from my dad about some of the buildings down by like Western and Selby and how that had actually gone through a change as well. He told me that there was a place there that used to be called Fabulous Ferns. I don't know if it's still there, but before there was Fabulous Ferns and those nice sort of upscale apartments above it, my dad told me that it was actually kind of like a seedy hotel where like you could get a room for a night kind of thing. So I just think about the changes that have happened over time. Who has access to capital to be able to like invest, and how that changes the trajectory of the surrounding community over time.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. So, final question. What do you know about the Rondo Land Bridge project?
Not a whole lot. What I know about it is that there was a group of, I would say, elder Black folks that kind of came up with the idea. And I think in general, the idea sounds good, positive. But I also know that there was some pushback from younger Black leaders around saying, well, this isn't necessarily what we think is, the right way to acknowledge the harm that was caused. And I know that there's other things that the city of St. Paul is doing around home ownership, et cetera, specifically for those that live in the Rondo neighborhood. And so I think that's good. So I just feel like there is a little bit of a generational gap around that concept from what I understand. But I don't know a ton about it, I'll be honest.
I think that's pretty much all the questions that we have for you, but thank you so much for Thank you so much.
Absolutely, anytime. I love you. I love supporting young people and being there for them. And I also, I've always been a little bit jealous of the people that have gone to the high school for recording arts, because who knows, if that had been an option for me, what I'd be doing right now. I love art,
There's so many amazing people here. I love this school, honestly.
Absolutely. Actually, I have a friend, my friend Jennifer, lost her life partner, Daniel, was a teacher there, and he passed away late last year. And so I know that he was kind of a newer admin, but that had made a big impact on a lot of young people there just in a short time. And I know some other folks that work there as well. So I just think it's a real asset to the community. It speaks to what the young people want and are interested in, and gives them space to really show up and be authentically themselves. So I'm happy to have made time for you guys today, and just grateful that you asked me.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, April. I love talking with you all the time.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Take care of yourself. I'm here anytime, okay?
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching our podcast. If you like what you see, give us a like, hit that subscribe button, and click that notification bell to get notified when we put out new podcast episodes.